If Kabila stay, Obama must go. Kabila rest, Obama must go. If Kabila stay, Obama must go.
Kanange Kabila kwenda kwenda bika bwala beto Congo Congo yake ya beto ya ngeve va mourir là-bas.
It's going to be a different language here. We are all from African continent. I'm going to speak in Arabic and I'm going to speak in English in both. Kabila, it's very shameful, my friend, to kill people in Africa. How are you going to kill your people, your own people in Africa? Kabila, you have to leave the office right away. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. معكم والاستشارة من ولاية دنفر هنا. الآن نتحدث عن الإبادات الجماعية التي حصلت في مدينة الكونغو وفي كل القارة الإفريقية. أوباما عليك الرد، أوباما عليك أن تتخذ إجراءات قانونية مجددة لتغيير الوضع الإنساني في الكونغو وفي دارفور وفي كل أماكن السودان وكل أماكن أفريقيا. Thank you so much.
I am Kazaya, daughter of a Congolais, who is deeply troubled as many other Congolais people around the world. In the name of the Congolais children, Joseph Kabila have killed, and in the name of those who are still surviving the brutal atrocity, his we have come here today to denounce to the world that it is unjust to hold and try people captive for the interest of the killer. Mr. Joseph Kabila and his support, especially the international community, the time has come for the Congolese people to be in charge of their own business and to determine their own destiny without an influence of the corrupt international community. At this moment, we are saying enough is enough. Let the Congolese people control their own future for the benefit of their sons and daughters. In order to make that possible in the Congolese people, elected on November 28, 2011, Dr. Etienne Tshisekedi as their next president is whom they have faith by restoring the country's rule of law. There is a lack of the rule of law. We want the Congolese people to be ruled by laws, not by a group of killers, criminals with Mr. Joseph Kabila, their quarterback.
Thank you very much. Great.
Thank you.
Gorgeous. If Kabila stay, Soki Kabila tikali. Soki Kabila tikali. One slogan at Denver.
The behavior of the woman rape is painful. The Congo War has claimed more lives than any conflict since World War II. Right now there's a war taking place in the heart of Africa in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And more people have died there than Iraq, Afghanistan, and Darfur combined. You probably haven't heard much about it, but as CNN's Anderson Cooper reported first last January, the segment originally broadcasted on January 13, 2008. It was updated on August 14, 2008. It's the deadliest conflict since World War II. Within the last 10 years, more than 8 million people have died and the numbers keep rising. Anderson Cooper, most frequent targets of this hidden war are women. It is in fact a war against women, and the weapon used to destroy them, their families, and whole communities is rape. The youngest is a 3-year-old, and the oldest was 75. To understand what is happening there, you have to go back more than a decade, when the genocide that claimed nearly 1 million lives neighboring Rwanda spilled over into Congo. Since then, Congolese army, foreign-backed rebels, and homegrown militia have been fighting each other over power in this land, which has some of the world's biggest deposits of gold, copper, diamonds, and tin. The United Nations was called in today, and their mission is the largest peacekeeping operation in history. There are 2 stories about how this war began, the official story and the true story. The official story is that after Rwanda genocide, the Hutu mass murderers fled across the border into Congo. The Rwandan government chased after them, but it's a lie. How do we know? The Rwandan government didn't go after them, but where the Hutu genocide were, at least not at first. They went to where Congo's natural resources were and began to gather them. They even told their troops to work with any Hutus they came across. Congo is the richest country in the world for gold, diamonds, coltan, copper, and more. Everybody wanted a slice. Women would go seeking refuge in the hospital and in the camp, a safe haven. But the truth is, in Congo, for women, there's no such thing. There may be no justice in Congo. Even in these supposedly protected camps, women are raped every single day. Women rape almost becomes the norm there. Women get raped in wars all the time, but in Congo, it is indifferent there with brutality, 5 to 6 soldiers at a time. They rape a woman, 5 or 6 of them at a time, but that is not enough. Then they shoot a gun into her vagina. We have pictures for those who want them. In all, I never imagined anything like it. To read so many rape, that shocks me, but what shocks me more is the way they are raped. Each armed group has a trademark manner of violating. He explains the Burundis rape men as well as women. The Mai Mai local defense forces rape with branches, are bayonets, and militias their victims. The Rwanda set groups of soldiers to rape one woman. Armed groups emerge from the forest to terrorize villages and steal women. United Nations soldiers do the same. UN peacekeepers themselves are contributing to Congo's frenzy of sexual assault. It's a shame to United Nations. Congo's government seems unable or unwilling to stop them. The UN said that a lot of allegations of sexual abuse were reported, committed by peacekeepers from Morocco, Nepal, Pakistan, South Africa, Tunisia, and Uruguay. In Congo, in that there were likely hundreds more that would never be reported. Commanders were allegedly resisting measures to curb such abuse. Secretary General Kofi Annan announced there was clear evidence that acts of gross misconduct have taken place. Furthermore, UN investigators found that peacekeepers and civilian workers were paying an average of US $2 for sex with women in populations they were assigned to protect. Are bartering for sex with food, basic supplies, or vicious promise of work in safe, well-guarded UN compounds. This is not rape because soldiers have got bored and have nothing to do. It is a way to ensure that communities accept the power and authority of that particular armed group. This is about showing terror. This is about using it as a weapon of war. In some villages, as many as 90% of women have been raped. Men in the villages are usually unarmed and incapable of fighting back. I'm going to tell you a story about a woman in Walango village. Copper found 24-year-old Lucina. She was at home one night with her 2 children and her young brother when 6 soldiers broke in. They tied her up and began to rape her one by one. She was lying on the ground and they gave a flashlight to her brother so that he could see them raping her. They raped her like they were animals, one after another. When the first one finished, they washed out with water, told me to stand up so the next man could rape me. She was convinced they killed her just as soldiers had murdered her parents the year before. Instead, they turned to her brother. They wanted him to rape me, but he refused and told them, "I cannot do such a thing. I cannot rape my sister." So they took out their knives and stabbed him to death in front of her. No senior officer of any military, as well as the national armies of Rwanda, Uganda, and Burundi, which committed thousands of rapes, has ever been held accountable for sexual violence committed by his staff. Hope is not something you expect Congo's rape survivors to still cling to, but they do. This march is just claiming a better government with the president, Etienne Tshisekedi, elected by the population on November 22nd, 2011, who could stop all this. An armed international intervention to relieve from Congo from suffering. A social justice supported by the U.S. that could have cut off the money to those who are killing and supporting women rape. A stop supporting the killer, criminal, and incompetent Mr. Joseph Kabila, who does not have legitimacy of the Congolese. An arrest of the killer and criminal Mr. Joseph Kabila and his followers to appear at an international penal court at The Hague for crimes against humanity, women raping. Relief in Congo, it seems it is just too much for us to ask.
Voicing up its concerns on the international plot against the Congolese people by imposing to them a person whom they did not elect to be their next president. Today, we are marching to protest against the elections fraud, proclaiming the incumbent president, Joseph Kabila, the winner. The Congolese people overwhelmingly elected Dr. Etienne Tshisekedi Wamulumba as their next president. This was an expression of many decades of oppression and suffering imposed to them by the international community through a proxy actor who is the incumbent president, Joseph Kabila. Unfortunately, the international community is imposing to the Congolese people an incompetent, corrupt, and criminal Joseph Kabila, who is a protector of their selfish interests. Mr. Governor, let us give you a little bit of the background on the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The DRC is a country located in Central Africa with a population estimated to about 71 million inhabitants. The DRC one time was the Belgian colony. On June 30th, 1960, the DRC was declared independent from Belgium. The DRC contains many of the most important mineral resources in Africa. Despite its abundance in minerals, the DRC remains one of the poorest countries in the world, with life expectancy of 45 for men and 48 for women. According to the United Nations Population Development (UNPD) report released on November 2011, the DRC's Human Development Index, the HDI, is 187 out of 187 nations. The HDI
possible de vivre la gloire passée.